Final Fantasy VII is one of the most influential video games ever made. The cultural impact it's had on the video game industry is something that is still being felt to this day. Not only has it influenced the RPG genre, gone on to popularize the JRPG, and helped cement Square Enix and Final Fantasy as household names, it's firmly placed its roots in video game storytelling and showed the industry the capabilities video games have to tell complex, engaging narratives in an interactive format. What makes Final Fantasy VII such a timeless classic is how relevant its narrative still is. 26 years later, and Squaresoft has been able to make a story that has stood for decades and likely will do so for many more to come, as its themes and politics are just as relevant today, if not even more relevant than they were back in 1997. Final Fantasy VII has gone on to touch the hearts of many, defining the generation who grew up with it, as many consider it to be the best entry in the franchise. Its legacy has gone on to spawn sequels, prequels, and remakes, all of which have gone on to create legacies all of their own. Final Fantasy VII pulls hard from Gnosticism, the occult, Shintoism, Friedrich Nietzsche, and critiques Western religion over the world, making it a hell of a game to unpack from a story perspective. If you haven't done so already, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and join me on a journey to save the planet from a cataclysmic cosmic event that threatens the very fabric of reality, as we uncover Final Fantasy VII's complex narrative in our Final Fantasy VII retrospective and story analysis. Before we get started, I want to set expectations for this retrospective. The Final Fantasy VII universe has gone on to become bigger than the original game itself, with the compilation, the remake, and books gone on to create a legacy all their own. For this retrospective, I want to focus on the original game, as if the compilation and other material didn't exist. While I have nothing against the compilation and have plans to cover it sometime in the future, Final Fantasy VII is worth analyzing in the context that the other games never existed. Creator of Final Fantasy Hironobu Sakaguchi had always intended for each Final Fantasy to be a one-and-done entry, so each game stood on its own merits. It's through that lens I want to analyze its story, because I feel it's within that lens we can best analyze the contents of Final Fantasy VII's story, to better understand its themes and deep, complex morals it's trying to convey. A chapter select has been provided down below for your convenience, making it easier for you to pick back up and watch. If you're new here, my retrospectives are broken into 4 parts. First, we'll cover the development history to get an idea of what inspired the developers and what was going on through their heads as they developed the game. Second is a detailed story recap, analyzing and talking about relevant themes, symbolism, and mythology as they become relevant throughout the plot. Third, we'll talk about the combat and how it works. In the context of Final Fantasy VII, the gameplay is helped to use to tell story elements, so we'll talk about those as they come up as well. And lastly, we'll tie up any loose ends where I feel context of the whole story is needed to understand what is fully going on and what the game is trying to convey. If you would like to help support the channel, check the description below for ways to do so. You can also catch me on Twitch playing games we are currently not reviewing for the channel. Let's meet the developers behind this legendary game. Final Fantasy VII initially began planning in 1994 after the release of Final Fantasy VI, with the development originally being for the Super Nintendo. Development was scrapped quickly and the team was thrown onto Chrono Trigger to work on it, as Chrono Trigger's development was in a very rough spot. It was after Chrono Trigger's development Final Fantasy VII would officially begin. There were talks at Square if development was even going to shift to 3D or not. At the time, it was unknown if JRPGs were going to make that transition into 3D. Many developers at Square expressed interest in how this new technology would allow them to create a cinematic experience seen in movies. Yoshinori Kitase went to school to get his filmmaking degree before getting a job at Square, so he was interested in seeing what this technology could achieve. It was quickly determined, though, if they wanted to innovate, they needed to go all in on 3D. Sakaguchi stepped into the role and took this responsibility upon himself to learn this new 3D technology. As a result, we got to see a tech demo of how battles would look using that 3D environment with a demo of Final Fantasy VI. Square also contemplated leaving Nintendo for Sony, but it became clear their vision could not properly be executed on the Nintendo 64, with the cartridges and limited space being a key factor. full development for Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation began. Hironobu Sakaguchi worked on the initial story concepts, incorporating themes of life into its main narrative. Sakaguchi's mother passed away during the development of Final Fantasy III, hitting him very hard.
When we were creating Final Fantasy III, my mother passed away, and ever since I've been thinking about the theme of life. Life exists in many things, and I was curious about what would happen if I had attempted to analyze life in a mathematical and logical way. Maybe this was my approach in overcoming my grief I was experiencing.
While Sakaguchi wrote the initial scripts for Final Fantasy VII, the final product was vastly different. Final Fantasy VII was an amalgamation of ideas from various different creators at Square, with Nomura and Kotase leading the helm. Sakaguchi's initial script would see a detective in New York named Joe, with the main character eventually blowing up the city. The life stream was also heavily prominent in his initial script. Elements of both of these ideas can be seen throughout the setting of Midgar. Elements left over from the script, though, would eventually make their way into other Squaresoft ideas. The detective story and New York City would be used in Parasite Eve. Chrono Trigger and the Spirits Within would use the ideas of life as an equation. And Final Fantasy IX, however, probably was Sakaguchi's most well-established vision of the initial themes he wished to explore in his original script for Final Fantasy VII. Other key writers for Final Fantasy VII were Yoshinori Kitase, Tetsuya Nomura, Motomo Toriyama, and Kazushige Nojima. Toriyama would be solely responsible for the wall market scenario, while Nojima worked on the original script. Chrono Trigger writer Masato Kato would also write a rather heavy plot interaction with Cloud and Tifa much later on in the game. Tetsuya Takahashi and Soraya Saga also wrote a script for Final Fantasy VII, but it was rejected for being too dark for a Final Fantasy game. Eventually, it would make its way into what would become Xenogears. Takahashi's and Saga's script would have a much bigger impact on Final Fantasy VII's story, though, than you would initially think, as many concepts they wrote for that story not only ended up in Xenogears, but ended up being used in Final Fantasy VII anyway. Sakaguchi focused more on the battle system this time than anything else, proposing the idea of materia, allowing the player to customize how they wanted to play the game rather than having certain characters dedicated to one specific role like other Final Fantasy games had done before it. The idea was to give the player complete control over their playstyle in battle. Desperation attacks from Final Fantasy VII became limit breaks thanks to a suggestion from Tetsuya Nomura. Final Fantasy VII was also the hugest development staff at the time, with upwards of 150 people. Final Fantasy VII was so huge that they had a staff upwards of 150 people. Most studios at the time only had around 20 people working on a singular game. Art designer Yusuke Nauta had to relearn to redraw because of the shift in technology, as drawing in 2D and 3D were two completely different beasts. He was given a team solely dedicated to helping him with the art in Final Fantasy VII. This team was in charge of everything from characters, visuals, environment, battle designs, and animation. Nobuo Uematsu would once again return to compose the game's soundtrack in what is arguably one of the best OSTs he's ever made. At the time Final Fantasy was being made, the developers at Squaresoft had a healthy rivalry with Enix. They wanted so badly to surpass the sales of Dragon Quest, which up until this point, thanks to an immense amount of popularity in Japan, always surpassed Final Fantasy in sales. Looking back at this, it probably makes them laugh, as they now own the Dragon Quest brand, but at the time, Squaresoft had no idea of the beast that they were about to create. With a fierce marketing campaign, the push for 3D technology, and a focus on a stellar story, Final Fantasy VII didn't just surpass Dragon Quest in sales, it crushed it. The success of Final Fantasy VII made Squaresoft a worldwide success. They weren't just competing with Japanese developers anymore, they were competing on a global scale. Final Fantasy VII's ability to tell a gripping story is found mere moments of starting up a new game. Upon pressing the new game option, a beautiful shot of a nighttime sky appears and a young girl carrying a basket of flowers makes her way back to the street. The shot pans out, revealing a giant metropolis known as Midgar, a city owned and operated by the Shinra Electric Company. Shinra serves as the main governmental structure of the world. Think of Shinra as a capitalist technocracy, a society run by technological experts. Everything done for Shinra is for the betterment of them and maintaining their power. The camera zooms back in, flashing back and forth between a city and a train, finally revealing where the train is about to stop. Our main character Cloud has left Soldier, the military department of Shinra, and joined the ranks of Avalanche, a group of eco-terrorists fighting to save the planet from Shinra by stopping them from draining the life force out of the planet. Cloud fights off a couple of soldiers as Barrett waves him on. Accompanying us on this mission is Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse, the other members residing in Avalanche. Barrett and Cloud accompany each other into the reactor to set up a bomb and blow it up. Cloud has flashbacks of his time as Soldier. We set the bomb and make our way out of the reactor. We make our way out of the reactor once setting the bomb and catch a train back to headquarters. Everyone is pretty excited about their first mission being a success, but remain as quiet as possible as to not draw attention to themselves. Since the mission was a success, it's drawn quite a bit of attention from Shinra, as everybody, including the news, is talking about it. We arrive at 7th Heaven, home of Avalanche headquarters, and bar owned by Cloud's childhood friend, Tifa. Barrett picks up his daughter Marlene, who is excited to see her father back home safely. We get a little bit of time here to establish a bit of history between Tifa and Cloud. Final Fantasy VII is extremely good at setting up small character moments, fleshing out small bits of backstory. Cloud is not too keen on sticking around since he's a mercenary looking for the next job. She asks him if he remembers his promise, and a flashback ensues. A young Cloud and Tifa come into frame as Cloud reveals his plans to leave the town of Nibelheim and become a member of Soldier. He plans to make a name for himself, wanting to become as famous as Sephiroth, the legendary first-class soldier who fought in the war against Wutai. Tifa wants Cloud to promise her if she's ever in a bind that he will come to rescue her if he ever becomes famous. After some convincing from Tifa, Cloud agrees to the next mission for 2,000 gil. We retire for the night in preparations for our next big mission. The next morning, Barrett debriefs us on our mission. We are to go to Reactor 5 and blow it up. Because of the events of last night, Shinra is on top security, so we're going to have to make our way from train car to train car to ensure we get as close to the reactor as possible without getting caught. Failing to do so will just set us back and make our trek to the reactor that much longer. We sneak our way into the reactor and slide down the vent system into its depths. Cloud has another flashback. This time it's Tifa's father, dead inside of a reactor. We are quickly taken back to reality though as Tifa asks Cloud if he is okay. We set the bomb and make our way out of the reactor only to be flanked by Shinra's military force. President Shinra pays us a personal visit, applauding us for our efforts. They seem to have known we'd be here, and it was all a setup. After a fight with the new weapon developed by the weapons department, it blows up, taking out the bridge along with it. Cloud falls to the ground below as Tifa and Barrett watch in horror. Cloud wakes up in a flower bed. Between the flower bed and the roof breaking his fall, he's miraculously survived. In the church is the girl from the beginning of the game tending to her flowers. The girl introduces herself as Aerith. She tells us flowers here are special because they don't typically grow in the slums because of the giant plates centered above their heads. Introductions, however, are cut short after the arrival of a red-headed man with sunglasses, a suit, and a tie arriving with a couple of soldiers. They want Aerith for some reason. Cloud and Aerith break for the roof to plan their escape, but Aerith trips due to bullets being fired towards her. Cloud can use the barrels here to take out the soldiers. If the right barrel is chosen, we can avoid combat with Aerith and a one-on-one fight between her and the pursuing soldiers. Cloud is tasked with taking Aerith back to her home. We can make our way through Sector 5 slums, seeing even more of the wealth discrepancies between the upper plate and the slums. Visiting one of the houses in Sector 5, we see a man who is clearly sick. It's almost as if this man has been drugged, as he is incoherent and unable to form any sort of sentence. Marked with a number 2 tattoo, he seems to be part of some sort of experiment, another clever hint at foreshadowing of events yet to come. Aerith takes us to her house where we are thanked by her mother for saving her. Cloud is invited to stay the night by Aerith but is told by her mother to please leave. She is aware Cloud is from Soldier due to the distinct glow his eyes give off. She doesn't want Aerith to get hurt again. Cloud agrees and falls asleep in a bed, momentarily enjoying the nice comfort of a bed. It's been a while since he slept so comfortably. With another flashback occurring, it shows an instant where he returned home on a mission to visit his mother. Cloud sneaks out of the house early the next morning to leave before Aerith knows he's gone. But to his bewilderment, she beats him out of bed and is waiting for him to head to Sector 6. Aerith and Cloud take a break in an old playground where she reveals she used to have a boyfriend in Soldier, but he died as his letters one day stopped coming. Her boyfriend was a first-class soldier just like Cloud. Aerith and Cloud look over to see Tifa in a carriage being pulled by two chocobos heading towards Wall Market. Wall Market serves as the criminal underbelly of Midgar, run by thugs, criminals, and scam artists alike. Wall Market has become the central hub for secrets and information on the down low. In charge of this establishment is Don Corneo. Cloud decides to go and rescue Tifa. Aerith and Cloud learn Tifa has been talking to Don Corneo, an information broker known for his love of the ladies of the night. Corneo has his eyes set on finding a bride. Every night, 3 women are rounded up and taken to Don Corneo's manor as he picks a lady he wishes to spend the night with. Since Corneo is only interested in women, there is no way Cloud can go in, and Aerith can't go in alone because it's too dangerous. Aerith concocts a plan to save Tifa by dressing Cloud up as a girl and making their way into Corneo's mansion. After sneaking through the mansion, we find Tifa and make our way to Corneo. Depending on the choices and items we obtain through Wall Market will determine who Corneo picks. Yes, it's possible to get Corneo to pick Cloud. We press Corneo for information regarding what Shinra plans to do. The head of the weapons research department, Heidegger, plans to destroy the pillars holding the plate up and crush Sector 7 under it. But before the party can leave, Corneo pulls the lever and feeds us to a swamp monster below. Making their way through the sewer and the train graveyard, we arrive at the collapsing plate. Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse are seriously hurt, with Barrett holding off Shinra up top the support pillar. Tifa, worried about Marlene, tells Aerith to go to the bar in Sector 7 and take her somewhere safe. We climb the pillar and assist Barrett, but to no avail. We are stopped dead in our tracks by Reno, a member of the Turks. Reno activates the pillar to collapse it. With no way for the party to escape, we must try to find a way to do so. The Turks take off on the helicopter with Aerith aboard, yelling that she got her somewhere safe. The Turks take her back to Shinra headquarters. We are barely able to escape by grabbing a crane and swinging into Sector 6. A distraught Barrett, upset at himself for losing Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse, begins to mourn their death and that of his daughter Marlene. Tifa tells Barrett Marlene is alive because she told Aerith to take her somewhere safe, and since Aerith yelled at the helicopter that she did, she figures this must be Marlene, so it's off to Aerith's house we go. Final Fantasy VII, for the latter point of the game, has built Shinra up to be the big bad guys, and while they still certainly are, there's no doubt about that, this is the first time we are able to reflect on our actions as the player. We see the game through the party's eyes, are told of the destruction that Shinra's reactors will bring to the planet, and how that energy will eventually suck the life out of the planet. Not once do we actually stop to think about if we are just as evil or even more evil than Shinra themselves. Our actions have caused the death of many civilians, innocent bystanders, and employees who are just showing up to work. We may be led to believe we are justified in blowing up the reactors, but are we? People's jobs upended, property destroyed, loved ones killed. Are we really any better than Shinra? At this point, we have just as much blood on our hands as Shinra does. It may have not been our actions directly that led to the destruction of Sector 7, but the actions we partook in is what's caused its destruction in the first place. This was part of the reason Final Fantasy VII story was so well loved. It secretly paints a black and white picture of good and evil. Events quickly begin to spiral out of control and make us question our actions as we realize we are no different than Shinra. Both parties have done equally disgusting things, making us no different from our enemies. Looking at the state of our world and what it's in today, I can see a lot of parallels between what's happening now and what happened in the game. The party makes their way to Aerith's house to learn the truth about who Aerith is. Aerith is the last of the Ancients, the last of her species. The Ancients, or more commonly known as the Cetra, have an affinity with the planet. They are able to connect and talk with it in almost a spiritualistic sense. Aerith's mother adopted her about 15 years ago when her mother passed away at the train station, begging her to keep her safe. She was waiting for her husband to return home from the Wutai War when she found Aerith. Elmira began to notice Aerith was special after she accurately predicted her husband had passed away one day, only to receive a letter days later, all but confirming it was true. The Turks wanted Aerith and kept a close eye on her. She knew this day was going to come, but it didn't ever make it any easier. After a reunion with Marlene, it's decided we must go rescue Aerith. After all, she was caught up in this mess because of us. We ascend the destroyed plate of Sector 7 by using broken debris and climb our way up towards Shinra headquarters. Once inside, we learn just a little bit about Shinra's plan. They plan to construct Neo Midgar, a brand new city placed on the supposed legendary Promised Land, which Aerith, the last remaining ancient, should be able to lead them to. The Promised Land is supposed to be a paradise of infinite energy, which would be a gold mine for a company like Shinra to expand and become an even bigger global superpower in their efforts to drain energy from the planet. In a lot of ways, Shinra is very reminiscent of the West and our never-ending expansion to gain global dominance on fossil fuels. Even the name the Promised Land hints at this connection. The Promised Land was the land gifted to the Israelites by God after Moses brought them out of the enslavement of Egypt. The Promised Land would be what today is modern Israel, smack dab in the Middle East, sitting on huge oil deposits. Considering we had just come off of the Gulf War a mere 6 years before this game was released, it doesn't surprise me how much inspiration the conflict in the Middle East had on Final Fantasy VII's story. After spying on the meeting with Shinra, we can follow Hojo up a flight of stairs into the science department, and Cloud sees a tank labeled Genova. Inside is a feminine humanoid body missing its head. Whatever this thing is, it doesn't look friendly. We ride the elevator up, and inside is a cat-like creature attacking Aerith. Hojo plans to breed them since, as he puts it, they're the last of their kind. This dude is one sick asshole. After we fight one of Hojo's experiments, the creature introduces himself as Red 13 and accompanies us in our escape. We successfully have Aerith and make our way to the elevator to escape Shinra headquarters, but it's a trap, and the Turks are waiting for us. They proceed to take us to the president. The president throws us in the slammer. Sitting in prison, there isn't much we can do but sleep. Cloud is woken up by a sound though. The prison door to his cell is unlocked, and outside is blood everywhere. Soldiers dead. Not a single soul in the prison cell is left alive. Making their way back through Hojo's lab, the body of Genova, which was inside of the tank, is now missing, with the tank busted completely open. The party makes their way up to the top only to find the president of Shinra dead, with a sword stabbed in his back. Cloud instantly recognizes this sword as Sephiroth's, the legendary soldier from Wutai. Cloud sees a helicopter outside, and we make our way to the roof to meet the new president of Shinra, Rufus Shinra, the president's son. Cloud cues the others to leave while he has a one-on-one fight with Rufus, who gets away on his helicopter. Making his way back down the stairs, he meets up with Tifa, who stayed behind to wait for him. Aerith and company are surrounded on the ground floor. Tifa flags them over to a car, and they plan their escape from Shinra headquarters. Cloud takes off on a motorbike, and it's now time to fight off soldiers from destroying the car. Hitting a dead end, we fight another weapon created by Shinra's weapon department and make our way out of Midgar. Cloud has to stop Sephiroth and find out what happened to him. The rest of the party, wanting to save the planet, decides to follow Cloud, and together their journey to stop Sephiroth begins. With 5 current party members, it's time we take a look at Final Fantasy VII's combat and gameplay mechanics. Final Fantasy VII has one of the most robust combat systems the series has seen. Once again, utilizing the ATB system, your speed stat will help you determine turn order for your party. Final Fantasy VII, however, like all Final Fantasy games, changes up how combat works. The staples are still the same. You'll have abilities such as attack, magic, summon, item, and a wide range of other commands you can utilize depending on the materia you've got equipped. Final Fantasy VII, like Final Fantasy VI before it, has an in-game reason characters can use magic. Through the use of the Materia system, our party will be able to learn a wide array of abilities to help them throughout their journey. These small magical marbles are able to be equipped to your party members through the Materia section of the menu. Each weapon and armor has slots you can equip materia in. Once equipped, you'll have those abilities to use as long as you have that materia equipped. Equipped materia will level up with AP. You'll be able to obtain this after every battle. It was Sakaguchi's plan to get rid of the party-based system and classes the previous entries of Final Fantasy had and allow all abilities to be accessible to all party members. It was a unique decision at the time, as it didn't pigeonhole you into a specific class for each character. However, that doesn't mean the party's base stats don't give them aptitude for certain builds. For instance, Cloud is designed to be a heavy hitter. When it comes to physical damage, both him and Barrett are tanks. Having the highest HP and strength, it's great to set them up as strength users. Red 13, on the other hand, excels in magic thanks to his base stat being high in magic. However, you could swap it up and make Cloud a magic user and Red 13 a heavy hitter. What's unique here is just how easy it is to swap these roles interchangeably when you need to fit the situation for an upcoming battle. There are 5 different materia types: Command Yellow, Green Magic, Summon Red, Support Blue, and Independent Purple. Each of these have a unique purpose. Magic and summons are both pretty self-explanatory. Equipping these will give you access to magic and summons. However, you'll only have access to abilities from materia you have equipped, meaning if you have lightning and fire equipped to your weapon but you want to use ice, you'll need to equip an ice materia as well. Unequipping them and you'll lose the ability to use them. Support equips in conjunction with something else. Say you equip all materia to restore. As long as you have a link connecting both of those 2 slots together, you'll be able to use a healing spell on all active party members during battle. Blue materia can also give you other benefits, such as equipping Choco Mog Summon and linking it with the added effect materia will now give you paralysis to your equipped weapon, meaning there is a chance you can paralyze the enemy and get in some free hits. Command materia adds extra commands to your list during battle, such as Still, Death Blow, and Enemy Skill. Purple materia, or independent materia, is what it means. It works independently from other materia and has various different functions. For instance, Preemptive ensures you'll always attack in battle first, while Cover will guard another party member from physical damage. There is also Chocobo Lure, which is required to be equipped if you want to get Chocobos to appear in battle. During battle, you'll also be able to use Limit Breaks. These are special attacks specific to each character. Every time you take damage, the bar will fill up. Once that bar fills up, you'll be able to use your Limit Break. Unfortunately, you are not able to choose when you get to use it, oftentimes having to use it then and there if you want to use a normal attack, or save it for a boss by skipping that member's turn or using a different ability besides attack. I think this about covers the combat and gameplay section though, so let's go ahead and jump back into our story analysis. The party splits into 2, meeting up in the small town of Calm. It's here Cloud reveals his history with Sephiroth and how he knew him. Cloud and Sephiroth used to serve together in Shinra. He was assigned to Sephiroth's squad about 5 years ago on a mission to investigate the reactor up top Mount Nebel, the mountain near Cloud's hometown. The scene opens up with Cloud and Sephiroth riding in the back of a truck. A dragon attacks the truck and Cloud and Sephiroth jump out to fight it. Final Fantasy VII then proceeds to use its gameplay to convey the power differences between Cloud and Sephiroth. I always love how games can oftentimes use its gameplay mechanics to tell story elements. Cloud, being a level 1, is slaughtered by the dragon, but Sephiroth casts level 3 magic, decimating it in one hit. We've had a bit of time to play around with the materia system, so we know how it works. Checking the menu, Sephiroth not only stands at an insanely high level for the time, but also has all of his materia maxed out. We've heard how powerful Sephiroth was, watched him slaughter the entirety of Shinra headquarters, kill the president. This only adds to the tension, making us ask, how in the hell are we going to be able to defeat a man this powerful? Cloud and Sephiroth make their way up to the Nibelheim reactor. Sephiroth looks into the tank and inside is a creature. These creatures were made by Hojo himself. Realizing these were experiments, Sephiroth has an existential crisis and begins to question if he is even human, realizing he too was also made in this same similar fashion. We make our way back to Nibelheim, but Sephiroth is penned up in the basement of Shinra Mansion, an old research facility used by Shinra employees in the past. Visiting Sephiroth, he comes to the conclusion he is the offspring of Jenova, or rather she is his mother because he is made up of her cells. Jenova was believed to have been a Cetra, a species of humans from a bygone era. It was believed the Cetra were a nomadic tribe moving from one place to the next in search of the Promised Land, living as one with the land. Some Cetra got tired of moving and stayed behind in one place, eventually falling out in line with the planet and beginning to slowly kill it. Sephiroth has come to the conclusion the humans are enemies worthy of being wiped out for taking the planet away from Jenova. With Genova's cells coursing through his veins, he feels he is the one to inherit the Promised Land to rule over the planet just like his mother before him. Sephiroth burns Nibelheim to the ground, makes his way up to the reactor, kills Tifa's dad, slashes Tifa who tries to kill him after he murdered her father, and Cloud's story ends with him opening the test tube where Jenova resides and his memory draws a blank for some reason as he can't remember what happened next. After making our way across the swamp on a chocobo through a cave, I took the time to recruit Yuffie to the party. Final Fantasy VII has 2 members we can recruit that are completely optional, these of course being Yuffie and Vincent. Both of these characters are completely missable, but add so much to the story and its world, so it's a crime not to get them. We'll go over Yuffie in the upcoming Wutai section of the game. For now, we'll make our way to Junon, a harbor city built over a small fishing town where the water has since been polluted, causing there to be no fish. Once again, just Shinra screwing up the natural habitat of the earth. After hitching a ride on a boat, we encounter Sephiroth, learning he has Jenova with him. After a fight with Jenova, we make our way across the sea to Costa del Sol. Hojo is on vacation here, so we press him for information and decide to head south to the mining town of Coral. Upon arriving at Coral, Barret is treated very cruelly. The villagers exiled him from the village because of his support for building a reactor in Coral. The city of Coral was once known for its mines rich in coal. However, Mako was more abundant and didn't need to be mined like coal. The usage of coal was simply becoming outdated. Barret was initially in favor of the idea, seeing it as an opportunity, and thus the building of the Coral reactor began. This topic clearly bugs Barret, as it leaves him in a very depressed state. We press onward towards Gold Saucer, an amusement park built by Shinra. We recruit Final Fantasy VII's most worthless party member, Kate C. I know I'm pronouncing his name wrong, okay? Roast me in the comment section down below. Making our way to the battle arena, we see many people are dead, not by stab wounds, but by a gunshot. The receptionist says it was a man with a gun for an arm. Barret left our party some time ago. Could it be him? We are accused of the crime and thrown into Coral Prison right below Gold Saucer. Eventually, we are reunited with Barret as he reveals why he was exiled from Coral in the first place. Barret initially saw the reactor as a good thing, seeing it as technology changing and how we should embrace it. The villagers of Coral were against it since they had mined coal for years. Barret's friend Dine was against it because he felt it was their obligation to carry on the legacy of their fathers. Everything was fine until one day when Barret and Dine were outside when someone blew up the Coral reactor. Shinra instantly blamed the destruction of the reactor on Coral and began to take it out on the villagers. This was likely done to send a message to the world not to backstab Shinra. Barret and Dine made their way back to town only to see it be burned to the ground. Shinra soldiers began to fire at them as Barret held on to Dine, who was hanging off a cliff so he would not fall, but the bullets shot Barret's hand, causing him to drop Dine. Barret would later get a gun grafted onto his arm, and the doctor who did the surgery said that he had done it to one other as well. Barret figures this had to have been Dine. Dine runs the show in Coral Prison, so we're going to need his permission to participate in the Chocobo races to get out of prison. Let's go find Dine. We find Dine in the back of Coral Prison, distraught, beaten, and given up on hope. The man with the determined attitude was no more. Dine had given in to existential dread. He'd lost everything. His wife Eleanor, his daughter Marlene from the fire, but as we know, Marlene is alive and well. Barret rescued her when he returned to the village and raised her as his own, thinking Dine was dead. This upset Dine, as he just wanted to see the world burn. As long as Shinra was around, no one can truly be happy. He wishes for both him and Marlene to join his wife together. Barret and Dine fight. A defeated Dine realizes even if he were to survive, Marlene wouldn't recognize him anyways. Dine gives Barret a pendant that belonged to Eleanor, and he plummets to his death, claiming he too has too much blood on his hands to even touch Marlene. This is one of the harder hitting scenes in Final Fantasy VII. We've seen Barret's vitriol for Shinra in full force the entire game. With the curtain finally pulled back, we get to see the events that shaped him into who he has become. Barret felt responsible for Coral's destruction and thus sought to take it out on Shinra. In ways, I think Barret didn't want to take responsibility for his own actions. He needed a bad guy to paint his own reflection on. This is not to say Shinra isn't evil, but to reflect that theme we mentioned earlier. about the party being just as evil as Shinra. We saw broken men take two very different paths of destruction. In ways, Barrett saw what he would have become if he had continued down this very path of destruction. After winning the Chocobo races, we can finally leave Gold Saucer and are given a car as compensation for our troubles. We make our way to Gongaga. After visiting the village, we can get a scene with both Aerith and Tifa if we visit the house of an older couple. The couple is the parents of this first-class soldier named Zack. Cloud feels like he should know the name but can't put a name to the face. Tifa and Aerith both know who he is though. Tifa swears she doesn't, but it's obvious she does. It seems she is hiding something from Cloud. Aerith admits to knowing Zack because that was the boyfriend she had mentioned to Cloud a little bit earlier back in Midgar, but she stopped hearing from him, figuring he either died or went off to meet another girl. After all, he was always popular with the ladies. At this point, something weird is going on with Cloud. Why does he always have a relapse in memory? Well, we'll take a mental note of this and revisit it later. We stop at the reactor to learn Shinra is looking for Big Materia. Scarlet specifically wants Big Materia to use in a new weapon she plans to develop. Cloud and party hop into the buggy and head for Nibelheim. But before they can, it breaks down right in front of a cliffside, a small little village known as Cosmo Canyon. We learn Avalanche was first started by a man from Cosmo Canyon in an attempt to stop the planet from dying. Thanks to Red 13's father figure, Bugenhagen, we learn the planet is a living entity all of its own. Through the planet runs the lifestream, the blood of the planet, if you will. While not a living, breathing organism like us, it has a level of consciousness just like us. Bugenhagen can hear the cries of the planet, and because of this, he knows the planet will die, unsure of how long it will be around or how much longer it has left. However, things change, and the planet does seem to be fighting back. Cosmo Canyon is also home to Red 13, who we learned real name is Nanaki. Red 13 has always held a grudge against his father for leaving him and his mom to die when the Jai tribe invaded Cosmo Canyon. He sees his father as a coward, unable to protect him and his mother as she fought gallantly to protect him and Cosmo Canyon. Bugenhagen finds out what Red 13 thinks about his father and decides it's time to reveal the truth. Taking us through the sealed cave of Cosmo Canyon, we fight undead versions of the Jai tribe. So taken over by revenge, they were unable to return to the lifestream. After making our way back and fighting the ghost of the Jai chiefman, Bugenhagen reveals the truth about Red 13's father's disappearance. During the invasion of the Jai tribe, his father Seto single-handedly fought off the Jai tribe and made his way through this very cave, one by one killing them. Eventually, the poisoned arrows from the tribe would turn him into stone, watching over Cosmo Canyon even in his death. Red 13 sought to become strong like his mother so he could protect Cosmo Canyon, unlike his father. Both Seto and Red 13's mom made Bugenhagen seal off the cave and swear to never tell a soul about it. This caused Red 13 to grow up hating his father, but all along the cowardly father he thought he had was a hero. The soundtrack accompanied by this reveal is one of the major highlights for me in any Final Fantasy game. This gets into one of my major complaints though about Final Fantasy VII, if I'm being honest. How I wish scenes like this had been longer or more effort was put into who the Jai tribe actually was, fleshing out some of the backstory. And this isn't the only time I wish this would have happened. If I'm being honest, the older I get, the more I wish these moments I'll mention throughout was the compilation and not what we actually got for the compilation. Imagine a Final Fantasy VII movie about Red 13's father and the Jai tribe and how epic that would have actually have been to witness. After our broken down buggy has been fixed, we can finally make our way to Nibelheim. Remember how Cloud says the town's burnt down? This is the first time Final Fantasy VII really begins to question Cloud's story, as the town is clearly still in one place. Before we make our trek up Mount Nibel, we need to recruit Vincent though. Obtaining the locker code from the Shinra mansion, we get a key from inside and make our way down into the basement, unlocking the door. Vincent used to be a Turk and only tells us Sephiroth is his sin to bear, feeling responsible for his creation. We'll learn more about Vincent's past and how he's connected to Hojo much later. But since Vincent figures we're going to encounter Hojo on our journey, he decides to come along. After a long trek through Mount Nibel, we finally see a town. Heading there is a giant rocket left by Shinra's now abandoned space program. If we make our way to the back of the house and through the back door, we come across a plane called the Tiny Bronco. A lady named Shara comes out asking us if we need anything. Cloud asks if they can borrow the plane, but she tells him they'll have to talk to the captain. The captain is a man named Sid. If we ask him about the rocket, he tells us he was chosen by Shinra to be a pilot for Shinra's exploration into space. But when they were supposed to launch, one of the mechanics was in the engine room at launch, and this mechanic was Shara. As the engines revved up, she was making some final checks on the rocket's engine to make sure it was safe. But with her inside the engine, once the rocket launched, she would have burned inside. Just as the rocket was about to launch, he stopped it to save her. And soon after, Shinra called off the space program, calling it quits and never trying it again. This has caused Sid to hold a grudge against Shara, and she's decided to serve Sid her entire life as a way to make it up to him. The relationship between Sid and Shara is a complicated one. While it's clear both Sid and Shara do care about each other, and if I'm going to be honest, have more than just feelings of friendship for each other, their relation here is borderline abusive. Sid always talks down to Shara, calls her names, and yells at her. Sid has turned into a massive drunk asshole as he drinks his sorrows away with booze. We can get much more into his story later, but Sid probably is the most unlikable character despite being very funny at times. Meanwhile, Shinra shows up to Rocket Town to take the tiny Bronco. They want to use it to hunt down Sephiroth. It's never explicitly explained why they want to use the tiny Bronco considering they have helicopters, but I'd imagine it would be useful in their pursuit of Sephiroth since it's a much smaller plane and would be easier to hide than giant helicopters. Palmer is in the back trying to fire it up, so we go to stop him, but we're too late. The plane takes off anyways. We jump on it, with Sid jumping on as well. Shinra shoots it down, blowing out the tail, and it's pretty much useless now, but we can use it to move around shallow water. Sid joins us when we tell him we are fighting Shinra, curious to see how this fight's going to go. We know Shinra is looking for the Temple of the Ancients, so that's our next place to go. But before we do, let's take a detour and complete one of Final Fantasy VII's more annoying side quests. Making our way to Wu Tai shoreline, we can make our way up the hills and are stopped by Yuffie telling us it's dangerous here. We are then surrounded by Shinra soldiers. We quickly realize Yuffie has pulled the wool over our eyes as the little shit has stolen all of our materia. We beeline for Wu Tai to get it back. Wu Tai is actually quite beautiful and holds historical context to Final Fantasy VII's world, as it wasn't that long ago, Shinra was at war with Wu Tai. This was the war that pretty much made Sephiroth famous. Wu Tai was able to gain its independence from Shinra and resist a reactor being built, but they lost a lot of their fight and cultural relevance because of it. Wu Tai used to be quite a wealthy land, but that all changed after the war, and now it's nothing like it used to be. This was why Yuffie stole all of our materia as a way to fight back against Shinra. She wanted to see her homeland be more than just a resort town. In a lot of ways, if we draw a comparison to Shinra being a representation of the West, then Wu Tai is a representation of Japan and how they felt after World War II. While they were able to gain their independence and their own nation, they lost their military force, their fight, and financially took a hit. This allowed a lot of cultural things in Japanese culture to become much more distant as corporatized American culture made its way into Japan. While Japan is a very financially stable nation, it's been tailored down to being more of a tourist hotspot, where their culture is looked at as beautiful, and rightly so, but it's looked at as, wow, look at these relics of the past, rather than of any sort of thing as being significant, or having their own identity. In some ways, it kind of shows us how much the average Japanese person resents corporate America for bringing the corporate structure and greedy businessmen to Japan. That isn't to say they hate all Americans per se, more the concepts our leaders brought to them at the end of World War II. After finally chasing Yuffie around Wu Tai, she is kidnapped by Don Corneo alongside one of the Turks named Elena. He has taken them up top Mount Dao, so we climb up to the top and stop him from picking a bride. The Turks put an end to him by pushing him off the cliff and plummeting him to his death. This is another one of those areas that I wish would have gotten just a little bit more screen time, as it really is so crucial to the backstory and the plot of Final Fantasy VII. But the little screen time we do get here is definitely worthwhile. After getting our stuff back, we make our way back to the tiny Bronco and go inland to learn more information about the Temple of the Ancients. Our intel leads us back to Gold Saucer. Dio has the keystone needed to open the Temple of the Ancients. He agrees to give it to us on one condition, that we can entertain him in the battlefield. Dio gives us the keystone, but we are unable to use the trolley to get back to Coral due to it being broken down. The party decides to rest at the inn, and depending on who you've interacted with or responded positively to their comments, you'll get to spend some quality time with a party member. For this playthrough, I went with Tifa. After spending an evening with Tifa, Cait Sith steals the keystone, giving it to Shinra. Turns out, Cait Sith is just an animatronic, remote-controlled stuffed animal being controlled by a man named Reeve who works for Shinra. The bastards even kidnapped Marlene in order to force the party to cooperate with him. With no other choice to keep Cait Sith in our party, we make our way to the Temple of the Ancients. We arrive at the Temple of the Ancient and discover the Turks have had a bit of a run-in with Sephiroth. After a rather annoying dungeon, we can finally make our way to the room where Sephiroth resides. The murals on the wall depict much history of the Ancients, but perhaps what stands out most is a giant meteor falling from the sky. This is the ultimate magic meteor summoned by the Black Materia. Sephiroth reveals his plan to become a god. It's Sephiroth's plan to use the Black Materia to summon Meteor and create a wound so strong that the planet has to draw massive energy to fix it. It's also revealed that this time Jenova was not an ancient, but a calamity that fell from the sky on Meteor that wounded the planet a long time ago. Cloud and party decide the only way to keep the planet safe and keep the Black Materia out of both Sephiroth's and Shinra's hands is to keep it with them. The temple itself is the Black Materia. In order to access it, someone needs to stay behind, as the temple is meant to be one giant puzzle. This was clearly meant as a defense mechanism to stop someone from obtaining the Black Materia. Cait Sith volunteers since he's just a machine, and he can stay behind to collapse the temple, obtaining the Black Materia. Since he's an animatronic, he can just come back with another Cait Sith afterwards. I really hate this. Cait Sith has to be the weakest character arc within Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII tries to play up this scene as him being the emotional hero, a redemption arc for Cait Sith, as if the doll is unique and special. There's only one doll like this that the dialogue says. It's just forced and dumb. It doesn't help that nobody actually cares about Cait Sith, and mere moments before coming to the Temple of the Ancients, he was manipulating the party by using Marlene. It doesn't even take long for a replacement doll to show up, as he just pops up in the next scene. Once the temple collapses, the Black Materia can be seen at the bottom of the temple, or where the temple once stood. Cloud and Aerith go down to grab it. Sephiroth appears and forces Cloud to give him the Black Materia. Cloud loses control and begins to beat Aerith as she's pinned down to the ground. Whoever you have with Cloud will stop him from beating up Aerith. In my case, this was Vincent. Cloud collapses and sees Aerith in a dream. She's gone off to a forest heading into the City of the Ancients. Upon waking up, we learn Aerith has disappeared and the other members are out there looking for her. Cloud is scared to go on, afraid he will lose control again, but he has to find out the truth. We hop in the tiny Bronco and make our way to the City of the Ancients. There isn't much to do here other than find Aerith, but it does have one of the best compositions in the game as you explore the city. Making our way into the back of the city, we can find Aerith praying. Cloud makes his way to where Aerith kneels and once again is taken over by Sephiroth. You are forced to hit the buttons and move your sword down to try to kill Aerith, but are stopped by your party members as they call out. Then this happens. Sephiroth falls from the sky, sword in hand, plunging his massive sword into Aerith's stomach. She falls over. Her materia given to her by her mother bounces off the pillars into the livestream below. Sephiroth takes off, calling Cloud a puppet, and the party is immediately thrown into a battle with Jenova Life. Aerith's theme plays during this fight. No boss theme, no time to make sure Aerith is alive. Just a sad, somber tune playing as you fight Jenova. I had prior knowledge of Final Fantasy VII before I got to this part. I knew Aerith got hurt by Sephiroth, but my friends in middle school didn't tell me she died. I remember all too vividly the first time I saw this scene. There was a sense of despair I'd felt. It was the first time I'd even seen the character die to this level, a character so pure and innocent it hit me hard. After the fight with Jenova, we finally see Aerith, her lifeless corpse in Cloud's arms, and an immense amount of sorrow the party starts to feel. Cloud takes her to a pond, crossing her arms and lets her sink to the bottom of the pond. I can only imagine how many people felt building up Aerith as a character, only to have all that progress taken away. The party has to continue their journey without Aerith, making their way to the northern crater. Before we make our way to the crater though, we're going to make one quick stop at Icicle Inn. Nothing major happens at Icicle Inn, but we do get some pretty crucial details regarding Aerith and the Ancient. A scientist named Gast and the last remaining Ancient in Falna used to live here. we can visit the abandoned house where recordings of the two existed. If you remember the lady clear back from the flashback of Aerith's adoptive mother Elmira, she found a lady dying with a young girl. This lady was Infalna. There is a couple of entries here worth talking about. One that elaborates on the origins of Genova. Genova fell from the sky and landed in Nullspole, the area of Gaia we are currently residing in. The meteor impact left the planet in a very wounded state. We learn the planet is still trying to heal from this wound. The ancients sealed Genova in a northern crater after successfully being able to defeat her. Genova killed off many ancients using its mimic ability. It mimicked their dead ancestors and made its way into other clans, eventually affecting them with a virus that turned them into monsters. And it kind of all starts to come together, as these are the same feral creatures that we have been fighting across the world. They are just remnants or descendants of the ancients that turned into monsters. Infalna also mentions the planet will not be able to fully heal as long as Genova is around. She also talks about the planet summoning weapons, which will become important later on. Infalna and Gast end up having a child, and this child of course is Aerith. Shinra, however, eventually finds out, kills Gast, and Infalna escapes with Aerith. The party makes their way up top of the mountain to confront Sephiroth at Northern Crater. Every single Black Cloak being has made their way to the Northern Crater for their reunion. Upon arriving, Tifa becomes a mandatory party member for this section. We press forward, running into Sephiroth. We see droves of clones making their way to Sephiroth. Meanwhile, Shinra is also here, believing that this is where the Promised Land is located. Sephiroth appears, leaving us to fight Genova once again. After a fight with Genova, it drops the black materia. Cloud picks it up, and you have the option to give it to a party member. I chose to give it to Barret. We make our way further into the crater and are immediately thrown into an illusion from Sephiroth. Surrounding the party is a visual representation of Nibelheim. A man with black spiky hair appears before Cloud, followed by a soldier and Sephiroth. Who is this man with black spiky hair? Sephiroth reveals Cloud was never at the Nibelheim incident, that Cloud simply never existed. He was just a clone created from Tifa's memories. The real Cloud was dead. This sends Cloud into a shock, sending him into an identity crisis. He starts to wonder if he simply is just a clone of Sephiroth. Tifa tries to tell him not to listen to him, but it doesn't work. Sephiroth tosses a picture, and it all but confirms Cloud's worries. Inside that picture is Sephiroth, Tifa, and the mysterious black-haired man. What makes this part hit so hard is how it affects the player's thought process. Cloud for the entire game has been built up as the party's eyes into the inner working of Shinra. He has been the one to teach us many of the game's mechanics, and we've had no reason to distrust him. Even though Tifa shows signs of confusion during his Nibelheim incident, we have no reason to doubt him. We as the player now believe Cloud is nothing more than just a failed clone of Sephiroth. Nothing more, nothing less. Everything we thought we knew up until this point now has to be thrown out. We are now just as clueless as Cloud. Shinra shows up with Hojo, who pretty much all but confirms that Cloud was just a throwaway experiment, with Cloud begging him to at least give him a number so he has some sort of identity. Cloud then takes the black materia from Barret, flies up to the top where this crystal is, and inside rests Sephiroth. This entire time we've been chasing Genova, shape-shifting as Sephiroth. Sephiroth's will to become the ruler of the planet summoned not only the clones, but Genova. Sephiroth's will aligned with Genova's will, and together they plan to destroy the planet. There's a lot of Nietzschean undertones going on here. Sephiroth wants to become a god, to become an Ubermensch. The term Ubermensch was coined by Friedrich Nietzsche. It was meant to be an idea of man rising up and creating a self-formed god, someone who could rise up and be the ultimate moral being to replace the Christian God. This was done as science began to replace religion and spirituality, proving God didn't exist. We as humans had moved past religion and instead embraced science. Shinra in a lot of ways reflects the idea of Nietzscheanism, as Western philosophies have made their way into Japan and around the world. Shinra abandoned their spiritual god and replaced it with science. They see Genova as a means to create their ultimate super soldiers and have decided to suck the energy dry of its resources without replenishing those resources, hence their ultimate crusade to find the Promised Land. Sephiroth himself represents the Ubermensch, though not specifically meant to be Shinra's god. Sephiroth fashions himself as such, a fake god that heralds the complete destruction of the planet. After Cloud gives the black materia to Sephiroth, the party escapes on Shinra's airship, and 5 monsters appear out of the crater, and Cloud is left floating in the lifestream. Tifa wakes up in Junon. She's been unconscious since the events of Northern Crater. Barret alerts her the two of them are to be publicly executed and blamed for Meteor appearing. After all, Shinra needs someone to blame for the Meteor appearing, so why not Avalanche? Scarlet escorts Tifa to a gas chamber, hooking her up to a chair where her execution will be publicly televised. As Scarlet leaves the room, a strange man in a trench coat gasses her, rendering her paralyzed for the time being. This person in the trench coat turns out to be Kate Seath, here to rescue Tifa and Barret. Along with the other members, they are planning an escape from Junon. Barret desperately tries to open the door to the gas chamber but has no luck. They leave, hoping they can find a switch elsewhere. Meanwhile, Sid has commandeered a ship and is plotting to escape from Junon using it. Tifa manages to free herself from the gas chamber, shutting off the gas, but has no way to get out. A giant monster-like weapon appears, blasting open a door, leaving a hole in the wall for her to climb out of. Tifa makes her way over to the cannon and engages in a slapping fight with Scarlet. Sid flies the ship over to the cannon, and Tifa leaps from the cannon, grabbing a hold of a rope and making her way onto the ship Sid has renamed the Highwind. The party lands intel Shinra is planning to collect big materia, so we're going to need to stop them from doing so. We make our way to a small village called Midel, a village on the edge of where the livestream cracks through the planet. They've found a mysterious man washed up on the shore, incoherent and unable to speak. This man is Cloud. It turns out his time in the livestream has really begun to screw with him. On top of his identity crisis Cloud was already having prior to falling into the livestream. Tifa decides to stay behind while the others decide to go get the huge materia from Shinra. After acquiring the materia from Condor and Coral, we make our way back to Midel. Tremors begin to happen, sinking the village into the depths of the livestream. Everybody but Cloud and Tifa escapes. When Tifa awakens, she seems to be in Cloud's consciousness, deciding to help him piece together the events and find out what really happened at the Nibelheim incident 5 years ago. For starters, we need to establish a couple of things. Both Tifa and Cloud's memories, because of events that have happened, are a bit hazy. Many falsely believe Tifa intentionally hid a lot from Cloud during the recollection of the events of Nibelheim, but part of her memory was just as hazy due to her wounds from that day. Tifa also ended up in Midgar thanks to her martial arts instructor Zangan, so in some ways she was trying to piece together what happened that day too. Tifa also had no recollection of Cloud being there during the Nibelheim incident, so when Cloud starts recalling events that he shouldn't have had knowledge about, it throws her off due to her already hazy memories of the events, because remember, Tifa had left the village before Sephiroth had actually burnt it down to the ground. Cloud's memories are an altered mess of affairs. Thanks to the livestream, Tifa is able to help him piece them together and find his true self. While the game never explicitly explains how this is possible, it is heavily inferred throughout the game that the planet is connected to every living being on the planet, thus connecting each person to one another. This likely derives from the works of Carl Jung and his theories on the collective unconscious. Judging how much all writers at Square at the time were pulling from psychoanalysis, it's no surprise they used this. Cloud was bullied by the other boys and was never really popular among them. He wanted so badly to impress Tifa, but always fell short of doing so. Tifa's mother passed away when she was just 10 years old. Tifa thought her mother's soul had traveled over the mountain to reach heaven. Determined to find out if it had, they traveled over the mountain as well. Cloud trailed behind them and the other boys chickened out, leaving Cloud to go with Tifa alone. Tifa took a fall, rendering her unconscious. The other boys blamed Cloud for the events that transpired, and Cloud was barred from visiting Tifa because he took her to Mount Nebel to play. Cloud eventually told Tifa of his plans to join Soldier and become as legendary as Sephiroth, promising her he would save her if he ever became famous. Cloud would never make it into Shinra though, as only a select few ever did. He was assigned to Shinra Infantry, a common foot soldier. 5 years after joining, he found himself back in the hometown, too ashamed to show his face after failing to join Soldier. He accompanied Sephiroth and the other member of Soldier First Class, Zafir, to the Nibelheim reactor. Tifa chased after Sephiroth only to be slashed by his sword. Cloud picked her up and carried her out of harm's way, thus fulfilling his promise that he would save Tifa if she was ever in danger. It was Zack that fought Sephiroth in the reactor and failed, but Cloud picked up Zack's sword and landed a mortal blow to Sephiroth. Fueled with anger, sorrow, and revenge, everyone Cloud knew had been taken away from him. An injured Sephiroth walked out of the reactor only to be pursued by Cloud. Impaling Cloud with his sword, Sephiroth was unable to pry it from his stomach. Then, Cloud proceeded to turn and throw Sephiroth over the edge to the bottom of the reactor into the depths of the lifestream. The build up to this reveal was intense. Not only did it build you up to believe Cloud, then pull the rug out from under you, it ties it back nicely though, revealing he was there all along. Cloud's shame of who he was, the Mako poisoning and experimentation done on him by Hojo, as well as Sephiroth's manipulation of the Genova cells inside of him really began to screw with his psyche. This caused Cloud to have a major existential crisis. Cloud's identity crisis could be described as dissociative identity disorder accompanied with post-traumatic stress disorder. Cloud's psyche is a representation of the three distinct states: the ego, the superego, and the id. This was a concept coined by psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud. The id is your innate primal instincts, your libido, your survival instincts, the dark impulses you should not give into. In Cloud's case, the id is the instincts or control Sephiroth has over him, forcing him to do things he doesn't want to do, such as attempting to kill Aerith, beating her up, and handing over the black materia. These were all instances Cloud gave into the id, the primal instincts infused inside of him thanks to his Genova cells. Cloud's superego is his friends and his hesitation to act on the id. Every time Cloud hesitates to kill Aerith, snaps out of his mental state when he's hollered at, or gives the party the black materia to avoid giving it to Sephiroth. This is Cloud's superego. The state of Cloud simply existing in the consciousness, whether or not he gives into the id or the superego, is simply his ego. It's his current state of mind. While many of Cloud's traits follow more along the lines of Freud's theories, there are some Jungian theories present here as well. For instance, Cloud in some ways does have to accept his shadow, that dark, primal control of Genova cells inside of him. It's through realizing this he gains control over them. There's also an acceptance of him being a pathetic human being, nothing special, just a common foot soldier, and coming to terms with that. Perhaps what makes this reveal so impactful for so many of us is knowing that Cloud is confused, used, and abused by the system. He is just an average everyday human, not special, not extraordinary, just like us. Yet through sheer determination, he will accomplish great things. It's invigorating, is it not? Even a normal human can rise up and do amazing feats, achieve amazing accomplishments, live our best lives. It's accepting yourself and how you are and integrating your dark parts into you and learning how to control them. Cloud and Tifa reunite with the rest of the party and tell them the truth. Deciding to make their way to the underwater reactor, they go after another large materia. The last large materia is inside of the rocket in Rocket Town. In a last-ditch attempt to stop Meteor, Shinra plans to ram the rocket into Meteor in hopes to smash it up. Sid is finally able to make it into space. With no other options, we grab the big materia and make our way to the escape pod. The party crosses through the engine room and one cylinder explodes, trapping Sid's leg. He realizes Shara was right about the cylinder not working this whole time, and with the help of her, the party is able to free him, making their way back down to Gaia in an escape pod. With all big materia, we drop it off at Cosmo Canyon with no idea how to destroy Meteor. Bug and Hagen suggest perhaps the party is missing something, and it's determined Aerith knew something they did not, which was why she went off without the party to the City of the Ancients. We decide to go back to the City of the Ancients and discover what secrets Aerith left behind. Returning to the City of the Ancients with Bugenhagen, we make our way to a pillar, learning the only thing able to defeat Meteor for good is to summon the ultimate white magic holy. The materia will glow green if successfully summoned. The white materia, however, fell into the water after Aerith's passing as it bounced off the pillars. Obtaining a key, we can start a projector in the water. We learn Aerith was successful in summoning holy. The only way this was able to be achieved was if someone with a strong enough will to summon holy was able to return to the planet. After Cloud gave the black materia to Aerith, Aerith saw no other way. She likely learned through this process because of the Temple of the Ancients mural. The only way to defeat Meteor was to sacrifice herself. She knew Sephiroth would kill her. The party concludes the only reason Holy hasn't appeared yet is because Sephiroth is blocking its path. Remember how Infalna said that the planet could not heal the wound of Meteor because Genova was still around? Yeah, this is precisely the reason. In order for Holy to be summoned, Sephiroth must be destroyed. Diamond Weapon makes a break for Midgar and the party is able to fend it off. Shinra has moved the cannon from Junon to Midgar in an attempt to blow the barrier apart, protecting Sephiroth. The laser draining pure Mako blasts through Diamond Weapon, hitting the barrier, now allowing access to the depths of the impact site of the northern crater. The party hops on the airship, flying to the crater only to get an interception from Kate Seath. Heidegger and Scarlet are telling Hojo to not fire up the cannon. The party, afraid the Mako energy could damage the planet more if it hits the already destructed shield, parachutes their way to Midgar to stop Hojo from launching the cannon. After we make our way up the cannon, Hojo reveals he is Sephiroth's biological father. He and another scientist had a child together and began injecting Genova cells into her as Sephiroth was still in the womb. The party fights off the reforms of Hojo, who has injected himself with Genova cells, thwarting his plans, and are able to stop him from activating the cannon once more. After a long fight, Cloud and the party return to the airship, telling them his reason for fighting. He has to bring his own past to a close and stop Sephiroth once and for all. He tells the rest of the party to find their own reason to fight for the planet, as each will need a strong motivator in order to push through the depths of the northern crater and confront Sephiroth. Cloud and Tifa, who have no friends or family to return to, spend the night under the airship and rest for the night, as the party finds their reason to fight. The next morning, everyone reunites, and the party once more decides it's time to fight Sephiroth once and for all. Before we make our way to the northern crater though, we've got a few side quests we still need to finish up that are relevant to the story. First off, if we return to Shinra Mansion, Cloud will have a flashback of him and Zack busting out of Shinra Mansion and making their way back to Midgar. Zack decides he and Cloud will become mercenaries upon returning and become rich. Before they can make their way to Midgar though, Shinra soldiers are pursuing them, and Zack is killed by the remaining soldiers he could not take out. Cloud is left alive and makes his way to Midgar. Next up is Vincent, so let's finish out his arc. If we take a submarine to a cave inside of a small lake, we can see a lady inside of a crystal. This is Lucrezia, Sephiroth's biological mother. She was the scientist who Hojo injected Genova cells into to create Sephiroth. Lucrezia is unable to die as a punishment. We learn Vincent used to be a Turk for hire as a bodyguard to both her and Hojo. Vincent fell in love with Lucrezia but failed to stop Lucrezia from going along with the experiments. When he found out what her and Hojo were doing, Hojo shot Vincent and started conducting experiments on him, making him into the shape-shifting monster in our party today. And lastly, we make our way back to Wutai to confront Yuffie's father in the pagoda. If Yuffie makes her way up the tower, she fights her father and gains Leviathan and the all-creation limit break, and is considered the new leader of the pagoda. She declines as her father admits if they fought back against Shinra, they would be no different than the large corporation themselves. But after the party leaves, her father does try to convince her to steal all the materia after the fight and bring it back to Wutai once they are done. With that out of the way, we can descend into the depths of the northern crater and face Sephiroth once and for all. We make our way down to the depths of the northern crater, fighting the last from Genova and defeating Sephiroth. The party can see Holy, and it's been Sephiroth blocking it this entire time. This is the reason it cannot be summoned. After a grueling fight, the party is able to defeat Sephiroth. Cloud, however, can still feel his presence, or what's left of him trying to control and manipulate his body. In a fight inside of his consciousness, Cloud is able to defeat Sephiroth and the party flies the airship out of the crater, as Meteor has finally reached the planet. Meteor begins to destroy Midgar as the party watches the once thriving metropolis get ripped apart, leaving it in ruins. Just as the party thought they failed, Holy appeared as if it was the will of the planet for Midgar to be destroyed. It's almost as if the planet viewed Shinra just as much of a threat as Meteor. After the credits, we are treated to a scene with Red 13 and his children looking over a cliff where Midgar once stood, covered in green and vegetation, cementing that no matter how technologically advanced we are, nature will always find a way to prevail. Perhaps one of Final Fantasy VII's most puzzling mysteries is that of Genova, a parasitic life form mistaken for a god. Many commonly refer to Genova as she due to her feminine physique. Truth is, though, Jenova is simply androgynous, meaning she is genderless. Jenova is likely meant to portray Yaldabaoth, or the Gnostic demiurge. Jenova was thought to be an ancient until Gash learned from a foulness she wasn't, but an alien life form that fell from the sky on the first meteor and tricked the people of the planet into following her. It falls in line with the concept of the demiurge and how it's managed to deceive the material world into worshipping him. Jenova is also the peak of Shinra. It's what they build their soldiers off of, in hopes of making them stronger. Jenova is meant to personify the greed of Shinra and what lengths they will go to retain their power. It's false idolatry, for lack of a better term, in their quest to see themselves as rulers and become gods of this world. What's even more interesting is how the journey of Sephiroth becoming a god plays into the fights with Jenova. Jenova is derived from the Christian word Jehovah, another name for God. Sephiroth mirrors the Christ, or the Savior archetype, if you will. The fight with Jenova birth is symbolical of the birth of the Savior, life is symbolical of the life of the Savior, the death is symbolical of the death of the Savior, and synthesis is symbolical of the resurrection of the Savior, or the process of merging with God and becoming one with God, much how Christ was able to become one with God after his death and resurrection. I don't believe this was done out of malice or spite to disrespect Christians in any way. It was done to symbolize everything Shinra stood for and how the Japanese view Western capitalism, as it has come in and led to the Japanese culture entering the corporate world and enslaving yourself to the corporate machine. What better way to symbolize that of corporate America than the very religion so heavily prominent? It's part of the reason I don't buy the argument they didn't intentionally choose these names. They just thought the names were simply cool. So much of Japanese media at the time was inspired by the apocrypha and Gnosticism. If you need further proof of this, let's take a look at the lifestream and what it represents. The lifestream is the blood of the planet's soul. In Final Fantasy VII, the lifestream is a living being with a will all of its own. This ties heavily back into Shintoism and how Japanese has reverence for nature. How ugly corporatized buildings destroy that. Some might even call this blasphemous or sacrilegious, but is it really any different than us taking Japanese gods and using them in our own stories? The whole theme behind Final Fantasy VII's original story, and why I think the compilation and the remake misses the point, is because it wasn't about Nietzscheanism, rising up to become gods ourselves and defying fate, but how our fate was decided by the planet. While Sephiroth in ways does resemble the Nietzschean Ubermensch and the quest to become God, Final Fantasy VII flat out rejects it, stating nothing can rise to its own will and shape the planet's future. In a way, the planet is God. Final Fantasy VII's whole ending symbolizes the planet, showing it doesn't need humanity or any species for that matter to survive. Holy wasn't summoned until Midgar was destroyed. It saw the threat Shinra was causing as a big enough deal to eliminate the giant city from existence. While I think it's safe to assume the party does survive at the end thanks to Red 13 being alive at the end credits, the fate of Shinra and the president was left up for interpretation. This was also reflected by the ending scene of the game, where Red 13 and his children make their way to Midgar to see it overtaken by vegetation. If anything falls out of line with the planet, it's going to find a way to rid itself of that threat. The party was really only able to achieve what they wanted because the planet willed it so. Each member had a role to play in stopping Sephiroth and Meteor. The biggest role, though, was that of Aerith. You think it was just pure coincidence the ancients lived for as long as they did? How the last remaining ancient was able to summon Holy, the only spell powerful enough to destroy Meteor? If anything, Aerith became part of God by becoming one with the planet. Her will and the planet's will helped each other in the destruction of Meteor. Aerith's journey, like Sephiroth, was about becoming a god, making her the true savior archetype of the story. It was only after the material god was done that the true god was able to rise up and save everyone. But in order for that to happen, the party had to succeed in destroying that false god, as Sephiroth and Jenova were draining the planet's energy. This may sound crazy, but is it possible the planet orchestrated this whole event, the rise of Shinra, Sephiroth being born, Jenova escaping from Shinra, and Sephiroth ultimately summoning Meteor? Aerith being sacrificed to summon Holy as a way to save itself from Jenova? Perhaps this was a method the planet had orchestrated all the way back when the first threat arrived. The planet couldn't heal from those wounds from Meteor because Genova was still around, right? So what if it was the entire plan of the planet to heal itself from that initial scar left from Meteor all those years ago? Final Fantasy VII is more about Gnosticism than actual Christianity, I'd say with Christian undertones inspiring it. The planet itself is the monad, the true god of Gnosticism. Genova is the demiurge, and Aerith would be the equivalent to the archon known as the Christ, and Sephiroth would be the equivalent to the Antichrist mixed with ideas of the demiurge. The Cetra lived as one with the planet harmoniously. Genova fell from the sky, tricked the Cetra into revering it as a god, and ultimately being sealed away in the Northern Crater. Thus, humanity had fallen out of unison with the planet. This reflects the fall of the Garden of Eden as well, and how the snake tempted Eve to partake of the forbidden fruit. Humans eventually fell down a path of destruction, falling out of sync with the planet, creating weapons of war and revering science and technology over the planet. The ancients were established as a derivative of the Israelites taken out of Egypt into the Promised Land. Aerith may have not been born of an immaculate conception, but she still fits the bill. One of the few people who can continually still communicate with the planet. It's a very spiritual thing if you think about it. The life stream represents the afterlife or returning with the monad. Aerith was the savior meant to save the planet and allow them to return to the life stream and become one with the planet. After all, if there is no planet, there is no life stream. If there's no life stream, life cannot continue. Sephiroth acts as a foil to stop this plan and thus the Antichrist. It's only after his defeat, Satan is bound, so to speak, and the true God can now merge and save humanity from its own destruction. Another concept I feel that solidifies this idea of the planet being the true God is the concept of the prima materia, or the first matter. The prima materia is a hermetic concept closely tied to alchemy. Prima materia is the world's soul. In alchemy, the prima materia is represented by the Ouroboros, the world's serpent, the snake that eats its own tail. The Ouroboros is represented by the continuous cycle of destruction and recreation, the cycle of life and death, and nature's ability to create new life and always overtake. That's what the true meaning of Final Fantasy VII is. At least that's what I think it is. What will you do at the time you are given on this planet? We can join nature in its creation and live life to its fullest, but we can't create. We as humans are not meant to play God. This is the part of the retrospective where I dive into anything I felt I couldn't naturally bring up throughout the story or needed full context of the story and its ending to analyze. That said, things listed in this portion of this retrospective and throughout the retrospective are not necessarily my opinion, only what I think the game and the developers might have been trying to say. We learn humans used to be Cetra, or ancients. The Cetra were a nomadic tribe that lived in unison with nature, but the humans fell out of balance and started building, polluting the planet, and indulging in their luxuries. There are a couple of ways we can read into this. First off, I think we've established well at this point the Cetra are meant to be symbolically representative of the Jews. The Jews originally being the nomadic tribe that made their exodus out of Egypt, constantly living in the presence of God. It was God that provided them with manna, and they in turn were close to communicating with God, just like the ancients were able to communicate with the planet. Once they reached the Promised Land, though, luxury kicked in, humans began to build, forgetting their God and taking credit for what God had given them, eventually leading to the downfall of Babylon. Very much the same as the planet in Final Fantasy VII. The Cetra were more of a pure line of the original humans, or those who were chosen by God and continued to try to live in unison with the planet. Sephiroth's name derives from the concept of Kabbalistic literature, Sefer Yetzirah, or the Book of Creation. The Sphirot is the tree of life itself. Sephiroth is meant to symbolize the Kabbalistic primordial man Adam Kadmon. Kadmon is not the same as biblical Adam from the Garden of Eden, but the concept of creation itself. In layman's terms, Kadmon is the ray of light that created all worlds and ultimately the image in which all man was created. While Kadmon is often perceived as an androgynous man, this is because God sits in the divine spot of creation. This can be interpreted in a couple of different ways, but both male and female, men and women, exist because they are needed to both create. Only God can create, as it states in almost all religious texts. Why is this important? Why bring up creation? Why bring up man and women being able to be the only things that can come together to create? This is because, in my opinion, Sephiroth is meant to represent the Antichrist. the false god believed to deceive the world and bring about its destruction. I think there is room to debate if Sephiroth's will truly was to destroy, or if it was solely Jenova cells inside of him manipulating him in the background. I personally think it was a bit of both, as Jenova cells did influence him, but when he realized he was just another monster, his worldview fell apart. Mankind creating Adam Cadman, or the rise of the Antichrist, goes against nature's will to create. As the injection of Jenova cells indicates, we can only manipulate DNA, but not create life itself. The only way to do that is through the means at which nature has provided for us to do so. To further this theory about Sephiroth being the Antichrist, I was browsing Reddit like a good child and came across a very strong connection between Final Fantasy VII and occultist Aliester Crowley. Moonchild was a book written by Aliester Crowley. The book was about a black mage who impregnates a woman with an ethereal child using magic. This ties heavily into the story of Sephiroth's own conception. Lucrezia's last name was Crescent, which is obviously a shape that the moon can take. Hojo, while not necessarily an occultist, does draw some parallels at the very least to Aliester Crowley. The other connection to Crowley was his book Sephir Sephiroth, which is basically just a book tied to numerology and the ways of the cosmos. It is interesting to mention, even if it's not connected per se or meant to be connected, but Sephiroth's supernova does seem to be some sort of mathematical equation. I've never been good at numbers, so you're going to have to tell me if you are familiar with this book or numerology in general, and feel free to enlighten us down below about this possible connection in the comments. The concept of God being the only one can create makes even more sense if we dive into the apocrypha, more specifically the Book of Enoch. Jenova falls from the sky and infects the world with a virus, turning many of the ancients into monsters that roam the land, effectively altering their DNA. This parallels the story of Genesis about the sons of God ascending from heaven and taking the daughters of man and bearing children with them. In the two apocryphas, the Book of Jasir and the Book of Enoch, both talk about how fallen angels took cattle of the earth, beasts of the land, and fowls of the sky and started conducting experiments on them. We saw this with Hell House and some of the other monsters Shinra begun to toy with. The injection of Jenova cells also plays around with genetic manipulation, which is talked about in the Book of Enoch. In some theories, it's even speculated the Antichrist will be created through genetic manipulation, whether it's the DNA of the Nephilim being implanted in the Antichrist himself or he comes through a tainted bloodline. This kind of mirrors Aerith and Sephiroth. Aerith comes from a pure Cetra bloodline, and Sephiroth genetically was manipulated through the use of Jenova cells, ushering himself to become a god that brought about destruction. Looking throughout history, occultism, hermeticism, and Gnosticism has crept its way very much into a lot of Western civilization, as Western culture has forgotten about their god. Final Fantasy VII, as we stated earlier, is very Nietzschean in its design. With God being dead, one must rise up and become God itself, become the Ubermensch. I feel, if anything, they were reflecting not only on Western influence of individualism and replacing God, but what they likely saw in their own culture. The use of Nietzsche, Crowley, and Gnosticism was really but a gateway they were able to explore the theme of turning your back on the planet, slowly killing her and draining her of her resources for capital gain, and to the detriment it has on so many people who are forced into this lifestyle. Judging by what the powers that be want for us and some of the future plans they are rolling out over a global scale, I don't know. I think they might be onto something here. A technocratic government hell-bent on using capitalism to enact a level of socialism where they can control the world. A militaristic might no one will have the ability to overthrow. What makes Final Fantasy VII so beautiful is this reflection of the planet being a living entity, capable of its own will and acting in order to maintain life. Final Fantasy is a story about living in harmony with nature and respecting the life it's given us. We are all part of something much bigger than us, and each of us has a part that we must play. While many view Final Fantasy VII as a critique on organized religion, and you could most certainly argue that, I think Final Fantasy VII is meant to be more of a critique on Western philosophies more than anything else. We've already established how Final Fantasy VII has gone on to critique capitalism. How, if left unregulated, it can cause problems for society as monopolies are able to form, rise up, and usurp control. But on the flip side, it's a dire look of how politicians have forced their way into other countries. I say politicians because we are powerless to actually stop it. We may vote, but if the political war machine wants to start a war, we really have no say. In ways, Shinra is no different than the constant political war machine we currently have going on. It's always at the expense of the poor, as the rich and wealthy sit idly by and watch. Good intentions or not, our ways of living don't always fare better in other countries due to rights and laws, and sometimes just what they believe being very different. The injection of Genova cells calls into moral ethics about how far we are willing to go before we ourselves are playing God. Hojo was obsessed with what science could achieve, what it was capable of, and he left his humanity behind because of it. It's symbolic really to see and fight him at the end of the game as a monster created by Genova cells, revealing what he really had become. Hojo had no morals, no compassion. Aerith was a human with magical powers, yet he saw her as nothing more than an animal for his own sick experiments. What good are these experiments and advancements of science if we guinea pig humans in our trials? Just because we have the capabilities of making super soldiers doesn't mean we should. Sephiroth's life was ruined because of Hojo. The Jewish Cabal and the Tree of Life definitely influenced many of the characters throughout Final Fantasy VII, and each character has a connection to the lifestream. Adam Kadmon, being the divine light of creation, imbues itself into the Tree of Life. Sephiroth's name is also plural for the nodes on the Tree of Life. Each character seems to have a connection to Sephiroth, Shinra, or ties to Genova. Final Fantasy VII proves it's just as deep now as it was when it was first released all those years ago. Its environmental messaging, critique on Western culture, and how a company that has monopolized often uses money to gain power, painting a picture of the realities that were to come. I knew going into Final Fantasy VII it was going to prove to be a deep game, but I wasn't expecting it to go this hard. Final Fantasy VII isn't perfect, as it does have some problems with its story execution, and its pacing could have been a little bit better. There are some parts that I felt were rushed and the pacing was a bit off-putting at times, but it's still one hell of an experience. Let me know down below why Final Fantasy VII resonates so much with you. If you would like to further support the channel, you can do so by becoming a channel member right here on YouTube or going to my Patreon and becoming a member there. Doing so will net you 2 days early access to my retrospectives and your names listed in the credits and pinned comment. This allows me to help fund my channel and buy upgrades and games as needed, and allows me to keep the channel as sponsor-free moving forward in the future as possible. Stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay happy, be happy, game happy. Spoons is checking out. If you've made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you so much for sticking around. If you haven't done so already, consider subscribing and giving that bell a notification so you do not miss a video when it goes live. If you want to be like my Patreons over here, you're more than welcome to click over there and help support the channel. Completely optional, but every little bit does help, and I am very appreciative of it. And I'm appreciative of you for just sticking around and watching the video as well. You can also check out my latest reviews and my other videos here as the latest video that has been posted, and check out my other reviews here or check out our other podcasts. But most importantly, guys, stay safe out there and stay happy, be happy, game happy. Spoons is checking out.